Good afternoon. I was going to say good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Love and Lunch. This is our 20-minute Facebook Live every Tuesday, 1 p.m. UK time, about love, life, and intimacy. And today we're talking about boundaries in relationships. That's any human relationships. And when you choose to end a relationship, or what comes up around that space when there's a boundary crossed. So I'm Joanna Keeble. I'm a certified life coach, NLP practitioner, orgasmic meditation trainer, and all sorts of other things. And you can find me at bigbeautifulboundaries.com, where you can find out about my online boundaries course. Over to you, Jo, and I'm going to just share online as you talk.
Beautiful, thank you. Yeah, I'm Jo Cooper. I'm a dating, sex and relationship coach, and I help women to reclaim their pleasure and fully embrace their full sexual power. Which is super exciting, and it just feels like it's happening right at this minute in my group coaching program. So yeah, really exciting things. So yeah, we'll share more about how you can stay in touch with us towards the end, but I think we've both got similar but very different experiences of ending relationships. I know you've just
yeah,
in one right now.
I bet that's true for pretty much everyone listening, watching.
Even in friendships, and just to let people know, this is not just about romantic friendships.
Absolutely.
Any type of relation. I mean, we're all in relationship with people, but it's just have different ways in which that occurs.
Yeah, it's kind of, for me, it's about who you spend your time and energy on and your attention on and why. There's quite a sort of stigma around no in our society. And so we end up with this weird situation where the default is yes, and saying no is an event. And then it becomes like saying no is the thing that everyone notices. And it's almost, there's a should, like you should say yes unless something is wrong. And that's why we end up with people who are like, hey, I'm a really nice guy, why won't you sleep with me? It's like, well, you didn't do anything wrong. And I've heard it from a lot of women as well, or a lot of non-men, sort of saying, you know, who also feel like ashamed or embarrassed to say no to people if they haven't done something explicitly wrong or bad or evil or obvious. So it's really interesting to notice if that's, you know, what our rules are about why we say yes to people, because that's the same as what our rules are about when we say no to people. So I'll just very quickly describe what's happened to me. I've moved house in a time of COVID as safely as possible. And yeah, and that for me was because of a boundary breakdown with my landlady. So, and I've thought about it, I thought it through carefully because I loved living there and I actually really love her as well. She's a good friend. Except there was something underlying in the friendship. There was some scratchiness sometimes. We had a different approach to things. That for me wasn't a deal breaker. What was a deal breaker was recognizing that after a blow up we had, the only blow up we've ever had, it was recognizing that what it came down to, for me, the big piece for me, was not this or that issue in the house, but a repeated ignoring of my consent, a repeated disrespect. So it wasn't just that she violated my consent, it's that she did it without any remorse or without any concern for my consent. And that for me is like, okay, that's a fundamental boundary issue. It might be that if I wanted to spend the time and energy, I could eventually get her to a place where she respected it. And for me, it's about how much am I willing to invest, and it's not my job to do that. But also recognition that that's sort of, you know, it's her business, what she wants to pay attention to. That's the other thing, is I think we can get caught up in trying, like the belief that, oh, if they only understood, we would agree. Right? This comes up in politics as well. the sort of fallacy that if everybody understood what I meant, they would all agree with me. It happens in relationships. Notice how that happens too. And sometimes we
Subtle
do
control.
understand. Well, yeah, but look, there's just a difference of opinion there sometimes. And we can spend years trying to change someone or trying to make them see, wow, what a lot of energy. So for me, it's like recognizing, oh, we have a fundamental disagreement on what's appropriate with how we respect each other's boundaries. And then a very clear choice. If I stay here, it's very likely to happen again because I've seen how her beliefs work around boundaries. And I've seen that she thinks how she feels is more important than my consent. So yeah, so then if I stay there, I'm setting myself up for more.
So how long, thank you so much, how long would you, knowing that someone is crossing a boundary repeatedly, how long do you stay in that space? Because I think a lot of people can relate to this, you know, it's like, how long are you willing, like you said, to invest the time and the energy that quite noticeably it is draining, it's having a physical, mental, emotional effect on your well-being? How long do you stay in that situation before you say, actually, I need to take care of myself?
Well, it's an interesting question. Like in traditional romance, aka my late teens and early 20s, because I was trying to follow these traditional scripts and trying to do what was expected of me. And unfortunately, what's expected of young women is usually to be attractive to men and to be amenable to men. Obviously, I'm oversimplifying, but I got a lot of messaging to say that I'm supposed to please him. And if he's not happy, then I need to change my behavior. Or if I'm not attractive, then I have no self-worth. So there's a lot of insecurity for me there in earlier years that meant that I accepted huge boundary abuses for years. I would definitely let someone walk all over me for a very long time. Because I sort of thought that that's what you were supposed to do. I didn't know there was any other path to me being loved and accepted. And I thought if I put in a boundary, there would be a sort of like, how dare you? Oh, that's
so
unattractive.
mean.
And then all men would look away. And but yeah, nowadays it's really about recognizing the shape of boundary abuse. So even if it shows up in a small way, that's a little like noted. And that's how it was in this relationship for me. There were a few subtle, you know, you could call them red flags if you like. I didn't leave straight away because there's a false choice here, right? It's similar when you're in a job where you've got to please your boss and your boss is difficult and they blame you or they snap at you for things. Why don't you just leave? Why don't you vote with your feet? You know, just leave abusive situations. So, okay, are there any others available? So sometimes you have to look at it. For me, it was about a person that I care about, and I can see the whole person, including some imperfections. So there's a choice about how long I'm willing to have imperfect people in my life. And no one's perfect, including me. We're all going to get things wrong. And so it's the size of the abuse. But I logged those things knowing that one day I'll probably make a decision to move on. And then it was somewhere I was living and I loved that place to live. And you want to get along with people that you're living with. So it's okay if we disagree here and there. What came to a head is where it was about respecting my privacy and my boundaries around what I'm available for when my fatigue was particularly intense. And so having that pushed actually helped ramp up my fatigue at a time when I needed to rest and not be available. And so then it's like, okay, so that's now affecting my quality of life. And also saying something like, well, if you don't like it, you can just leave. Why don't you get out? And then you have a relationship where there's an imbalance in power and someone with more power going, I've got this house. You can leave if you don't like it. And it's similar to an employer saying, well, you can leave if you don't like it. And that leaves you without a house or without money to pay for things. So there's some inherent boundary issues in the way that society works that can mean that we end up getting confused when we see abuse problems in our relationships, feeling like we should stay.
Yeah, and you know what? I just want to highlight something, and I just noticed how easy it is to put people, because of the power and the way that people think that this is okay, then actually how it can actually form this way of like putting someone on a pedestal, because if they're thinking or acting in a certain way, it's almost like the way to just put people or think that people, to make ourselves feel less than. And it's, you know, it's kind of like it's a resilience, you know. I just hear actually, you know, almost like noticing that that is going on for you, and also thinking at the same time, you know, I can make a choice here, and the resilience to look after you and to know what feels good for you, and to know almost when it feels right to make the next step
Mm.
and take the next, you know, the next step going forward that's really gonna serve your soul, your being.
That's really
And
it for me, the right moment. When you talk about the next step, there wasn't like a long running concern for me. It wasn't like, oh God, I really can't accept this situation. No, it was just like, okay, you know, I love her and we have some moments that aren't perfect. But
Mhm.
actually, I love that. That's just a human person that I get to love on. And the love is still there and it will still be there. The relationship may not, because I need to take care of myself. And you know, spending time with someone who has abusive behavior patterns and brings that into your life, that then if I let that happen, then I'm doing it.
Mhm.
Then I'm sort of in some form choosing to continue that abuse.
Mhm.
So it was about a tipping point and a sudden, now I feel that there's a new thing that's needed. And then
Mhm.
actually, yeah, being willing to flow with that and go with that, and not just not just mourn what has gone, but also sort of admit what doesn't work there. It actually felt like ending a romantic relationship. And I think that's because that space that I was living in has been such a part of my getting to know myself and growing myself.
Mhm.
And it's sort of tied up with some love and romance and some self-development. And so it's a really meaningful space for me, and also a beautiful connection with people in the house. So letting it go, I actually spent a couple of days to feel all the sadness there, which is kind of gratitude, but also the death of my fantasy of what it could be, and actually getting really clear about what wasn't there. The reason it reminded me of romantic relationships is because that's what happened, particularly in my earlier relationships, is where you're like, oh, if it wasn't for that one thing, it would be perfect. And you sort of look at this person and feel like, oh, but that piece is crap and that's hurting me and that's awful. But if it wasn't for that piece, oh, it could be perfect. And looking at this fantasy of what could be, which isn't true because it's a package deal. So
Mhm.
just actually getting grounded and getting honest with myself about what it is, and letting go of the fantasy of, oh, if only we didn't have this, that, and that. So yeah, to get ready to let go.
Really beautiful, ready to just let go. And I think it will be different for different relationship and circumstances. Um, yeah, I know we're coming to the end. It feels like we could have quite a long time on like ending relationships. And I think it's really important to notice like how long, you know, you're ready to. I think for me, I can only just speak from my own personal experience here, but I think just the place where I've noticed where I really abandoned myself in relationship, my
Mm.
needs and my desires. And I think for me to really just come to that place. And I think, and just to kind of notice, it's been a huge wake-up call, and it's really informed. And I know last week we spoke about dating, and I think for me in turn, that's really given me a lot of light to notice what are my green flags. And I know we touched upon this last week, and I think I was just speaking to Joanna before this, and I think, you know, I've got more clear than I ever have about my green flags in a relationship, from actually going into the red flags and exploring them and letting them blow up. And I'm not always saying that's the right way to do it, but sometimes I needed that kind of a hit to be like, oh crap, I can't actually going into a relationship unconsciously and not having these things, for me, doesn't feel safe. It, you know, and to be able to be like, okay, now I've noticed the things that have worked and don't work, being able to sit and being like, okay, these are my red flags. It's really empowering. And I think clarity is key. First and foremost, it actually, what keeps my alignment to like heart and spirit is like absolute pure clarity, which has been like one of the most empowering gifts, to be able to see quite clearly. But yeah,
Gorgeous.
Anyway, yeah, we have come to the end. It's gone so quick.
Really has.
It's gone really quick. I've really enjoyed it.
So I guess I'll put a question to the people to ponder, which is something like, where do you notice yourself overlooking boundary issues, right? A boundary is crossed and you think, oh, well, I'll just let that go. Yeah.
Definitely. So I was just checking Facebook, but yeah, beautiful. Thank you, everyone. It's been so nice to connect, and we'll check the comments. And if you've got, I've just seen there's a couple of comments there, but if you have any specific questions or you want to elaborate on the question that Joanna just spoke about, then please like either DM us or put it below, and we'll be happy to support, answer, bring up as a topic next week. I think, you know, the red and green flags are really important because I think we can state them, but I don't think there's too much conversation about what really happens when we step into it, you know.
Amazing.
So I think that's definitely something for us to look at. And
yeah,
likewise, just to kind of let you know, for the women out there who are listening, I have a beautiful Facebook group, Empowering Women to Ignite Their Desires. I'd love you to be a part of that. I also have a spot that's opened up to work with me one-on-one, which I'm really excited to take a really deep dive into healing work, which is beautiful. And I will be running my group coaching program at the end of February, and I'll let you know when a masterclass is going to be for that, which is about in a couple of weeks. So I will post information. And so, yeah, if you want to stay connected and reach out, I'm more than happy to help.
Gorgeous. She clears her throat. Yeah, I'm going to drop a link below to my Facebook group, Big Beautiful Boundary Builders, wanting to kind of, I don't know, wake people up a little bit to notice what we're doing in relationships and how boundaries work in all areas of our life, and where we feel comfortable to say yes, say no, say what we want, say what we mean, and where we really don't. Yeah, and just put a bit of focus on that. So I'll drop that below. Yeah, and DM me if you want to have a chat.
Beautiful.
That's it for this week, I think. We did it! We did a 20-minute. Oh yeah, that's a clean boundary right there.
It is, for sure, for sure. All right, loves, lots of love. Have a beautiful week, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
See you soon.
Bye.